The year is 1945, but, it's not the 1945 etched in our history books. The Allied flags do not fly in victory. The streets of Europe do not echo with joyous liberation. Instead, a different flag, a hateful symbol, casts its shadow across the globe. The swastika, emblem of Nazi Germany, stands triumphant. The unthinkable has happened. Despite the odds, despite the sacrifices of millions, Hitler's war machine has ground its way to victory. The Battle of Britain was lost, its skies darkened by the Luftwaffe. Operation Barbarossa, against all expectations, succeeded. The Soviet Union, bled white and starved, was forced to surrender. With the fall of Moscow, the last bastion of Allied resistance crumbled. A demoralized and depleted United Kingdom, facing starvation and relentless bombing, saw no choice but to negotiate. The United States, reeling from a devastating attack on its east coast, followed suit. The war, for all intents and purposes, was over. The world watched in stunned silence as the Nazi regime, fueled by hate and delusions of Aryan supremacy, tightened its grip on Europe. The thousand-year Reich, Hitler's nightmarish vision, had begun, but this was not the end. It was only the beginning. The world would learn that the ambitions of the Third Reich had no limits. The Nazi victory sent shockwaves across the globe. Borders were redrawn with brutal efficiency, reflecting the warped worldview of the victors. The Treaty of Berlin, a document dripping with cynicism and malice, formalized the New World Order. Lands deemed historically Germanic, from Alsace-Lorraine to the Sudetenland, were annexed into the Reich. Puppet regimes beholden to Berlin were installed in conquered nations. The once proud nations of Europe were reduced to vassal states, their resources and populations ruthlessly exploited to feed the Nazi war machine. The swiftness and brutality of the Nazi victory left little room for organized resistance. The Allies, shattered and fragmented, were in no position to challenge the new order. The United States, forced into an uneasy armistice, retreated into isolationism, haunted by the specter of what might have been. Yet, even in the face of overwhelming force, the embers of defiance flickered. In the shadows, fueled by anger and despair, resistance movements began to stir. From the ruins of Paris to the mountains of Yugoslavia, ordinary men and women bound by their shared humanity took up arms against their oppressors. Their struggle, though desperate, would become a beacon of hope in the dark years that followed. The Nazi victory ushered in an era of unprecedented oppression and terror. The Gestapo, once confined to Germany's borders, became the instrument of fear across the conquered territories. Millions were rounded up, deemed undesirables by the twisted logic of the Nazi ideology. Jews, Roma, LGBTQ individuals, political opponents, and anyone deemed racially or ideologically suspect vanished into the maw of the concentration camps. The camps, once used primarily for political prisoners, became factories of death, consuming millions in their fiery furnaces. The Holocaust, a word synonymous with unimaginable cruelty, became a horrifying reality, a testament to the depths of human depravity. For those who survived the initial purges, life under Nazi rule was one of constant fear and suffocating control. Every aspect of daily life, from education to entertainment, was subverted to serve the Nazi agenda. Schools became indoctrination centers, churning out generations steeped in Nazi ideology. Newspapers and radio broadcasts were tightly controlled, spewing forth a constant stream of propaganda and lies. The world watched in horror as the Nazi regime tightened its grip on every facet of life. The once vibrant cultures of Europe were systematically dismantled, replaced by a sterile, monolithic culture of hate and fear. The world, under the shadow of the swastika, held its breath, praying for a miracle that seemed increasingly unlikely with each passing day. The Nazi regime, despite its barbarity, understood the power of technology. German scientists, already at the forefront of many fields, were given virtually unlimited resources and a single-minded directive to ensure the technological dominance of the Reich. The results were both impressive and terrifying. Advances in rocketry, spurred by the work of Wernher von Braun, led to the development of intercontinental ballistic missiles, capable of striking targets across the globe. Jet aircraft pioneered by German engineers became commonplace in the Luftwaffe, cementing its dominance over the skies. But the Nazis' pursuit of scientific advancement was tainted by their warped ideology. Medical research, once a beacon of human progress, became twisted, focused on proving the superiority of the Aryan race and finding ways to eliminate those deemed inferior. The concentration camps became gruesome laboratories, where prisoners were subjected to horrific medical experiments, their suffering dismissed as a necessary sacrifice in the name of scientific progress. The world, witnessing the rapid technological advancements of the Nazi regime, was caught in a moral quandary. The same scientific brilliance that had the potential to benefit mankind was being used to solidify the grip of a regime built on hate and oppression. It was a stark reminder that progress without a moral compass could easily become a tool of unimaginable destruction. The Nazi regime understood the power of culture. They knew that to truly control a people you had to control their hearts and minds. And so they embarked on a systematic campaign to reshape the cultural landscape of the world in their own image. Traditional art forms were suppressed, deemed degenerate or un-German. Artists and intellectuals who refused to conform were silenced, their voices added to the growing chorus of dissent that the Nazis were so desperate to extinguish. In their place rose a new breed of artists and writers, their work carefully crafted to glorify the Nazi state and promote its poisonous ideology. Propaganda, ubiquitous and inescapable, permeated every aspect of life in the Reich. Giant billboards and posters plastered the walls of every city, depicting idealized Aryan families and valiant Nazi soldiers. Newspapers and radio broadcasts, under the iron grip of the Ministry of Propaganda, churned out a constant stream of lies and distortions, designed to mold public opinion and quash any flicker of dissent. The world, bombarded by this relentless barrage of propaganda, struggled to separate truth from fiction. The lines between reality and the distorted image presented by the Nazi regime became increasingly blurred. It was a world where truth had become a casualty, replaced by a carefully constructed narrative designed to serve the interests of the Nazi state. The Nazi victory, though absolute, did not extinguish the flame of resistance. Across the globe, individuals and groups rose up in defiance, risking their lives to challenge the Nazi regime. These resistance movements, though diverse in their makeup and methods, were united by their unwavering belief in freedom and their refusal to accept the tyranny of the Third Reich. In the occupied territories, resistance took many forms. Underground newspapers disseminated information and counter-propaganda, providing a lifeline to those starved of truth. Sabotage teams disrupted Nazi operations, striking blows against the infrastructure of the Reich, and armed groups, often poorly equipped but driven by a fierce determination, engaged in guerrilla warfare, harassing Nazi forces and offering a glimmer of hope to the oppressed. Yet, the reality of life under occupation was complex. Collaboration for some became a matter of survival. Faced with the threat of imprisonment, torture, or death, some individuals made the agonizing decision to cooperate with the Nazi regime. This collaboration, often driven by fear or desperation, created a complex moral landscape, blurring the lines between victim and perpetrator. The resistance, though ultimately unsuccessful in defeating the Nazi regime, served as a powerful symbol of defiance. It demonstrated that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit, with its unyielding desire for freedom, could not be entirely extinguished. Their sacrifices, often made at great personal cost, would serve as a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who dared to oppose tyranny, reminding the world that even in the face of overwhelming power, hope, however faint, could still endure.